country, you again have said that this country is not racist, and even though it has a dark past, it doesn't sound like you think it has a dark present. You have not sponsored that bill. You haven't co-sponsored that bill. Why not?
How many people in the United States today are actually descendants of slave owners? Forget descendants of slaves. Let's hold that to the side. Descendants of slave owners. You've had massive immigration.
I don't know if he's moving the goalposts, but he did that really nice.
Into the United States over the last 150 years. So now you're going to say that people who immigrated to the United States, who are not descendants of slave owners, were not descendants of that trade, now they're going to be responsible for paying that out going forward. My mother's Jamaican. My father's Panamanian. You have a lot of black people in this country who are not descendants of the American slave trade. So I already know off top, there's a lot of black people in America who aren't going to be able to get that kind of benefit or get reparations.
Well, most people who are for reparations, they feel like it should go to what they call foundational black Americans anyway.
And I agree with that point. But I'm just saying, I'm just laying out, these are the reasons for why I'm no. So while I'm
so
now,
you do support reparations for what Leonard just deemed as, quote, foundation.
Bitch, shut the fuck up. Who the fuck is really trying to get reparations? Is it like what's gonna happen after you get reparations? What's that gonna solve? Some shit that happened. I'm not gonna say it wasn't something bad, but don't you think every other skin color was enslaved? Black people are not the only one, and that's not just that, bro. I honestly think, like, bro, society has gotten so like frivolous and so like how I feel, and I need reparations that they won't get off their ass and go get it their own, you know. So take the weak way out.
Foundational black Americans?
No, I don't.
No.
But I want to explain that. I want to explain that. And so that's why you have a lot of people saying, okay, well then what are we going to do? And so my view is that what you do going forward is why you have to have wholesale changes in economic, medical policy, etc., so that the ability to access various parts of our economy and grow in our economy work for everybody, including people in our country who are, quote unquote, foundationally black. There was a bill in California for reparations.
Nowadays, they say you're not black unless you're this, and this, and this, and this, and this. You're not black if you don't blah, 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 blah. What the fuck? I didn't know black was not. Damn.
California Assembly, which is massively Democrat. They didn't move that bill. They could have moved that bill. When they were asked why they weren't moving that bill, they tucked tail and turned and ran away. They didn't even have the guts to actually answer that question. So I'm here with y'all. I'll tell you why I'm a no. But you have Democrats who will say they're for something, but when it comes time to actually do it, they're not there for you. They run away. They don't answer the question, and to be blunt, like the current vice president, not answering a lot of questions.
But she did say this.
Ask the question that they just asked you. Stop trying to, run around it.
She's for reparations.
After she said she wasn't. So which one is it?
No, she knows that she wasn't.
That's never happened.
That's the false narrative.
All right, that's fine. I'm gonna let. I
mean, she was here when she said.
I'm gonna let you have it. I'm not gonna challenge. I'm not gonna challenge.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Once again, we got to talk about black Democrat Party propagandists getting upset when Republicans school them with facts that don't align with the narrative, with the propaganda that Democrats want to push on black people, okay? And that is what this video is about, featuring Byron Donalds, who is on the Breakfast Club, and he is facing Charlemagne the Devil and Angela Ree and the other light-skinned guy, DJ Envy, on this show, okay? And Angela Ree is one of these women that is ultra woke. And I just want to remind you guys how woke this woman is. I mean, she went on CNN and was boohoo whining and crying about how people are calling her racist for calling out racism. Take a look.
I just want to say, Congressman, like, I wish that the new members, the folks who have followed in your footsteps could at least acknowledge that. Like, that's all so many of us are saying. And at this point, I'm emotional.
And let's fix it.
Because we cannot, like, it's like being constantly gaslit. We're constantly being told, I'm told every day I'm on air that I'm racist because I call out racism. That is maddening to me, and I'm crying about it because it's crazy. And I wish that somebody who's a colleague of mine, like Alice, could at least acknowledge that fact. Like, that is so frustrating.
Yeah, so nobody should be surprised that she's going to spend a significant portion of this conversation with a sitting congressman talking about a bunch of bullshit that doesn't really matter, okay? I'm so serious, okay? She's going to talk about is America a racist country and qualified immunity and police brutality, all things that in 2024 don't matter, right? These are not pressing issues that we should be talking about, but this is what they want to spend time talking about because this is what they like to fearmonger black people with, right? These false
Exactly. Okay.
perceptions that your life is in danger as a black person because of police. So this is what they're going to talk about, and Byron Donald is going to calmly school this panel on the reality of policing in America and racism and the fact that we really should be talking about the real issues, which is all the damage that has been caused to this country by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So without further ado, let's get into it.
I asked him, I said, well, why'd you make the move? He goes, because up there was no support for me as an officer for what I love to do, which is serve my community. So I said, enough is enough. I'm gonna move. He went to Florida. My sheriff in Florida, he's like, I have more applications coming from officers who are in states or in localities where they're not getting the moral support or whatever they need to continue to do their job day in, day out. And so they're leaving. Well, who does that hurt? That hurts. Who does that really hurt, though, Charlamagne?
Yeah,
if you don't have officers if you don't have officers on the streets or officers, in urban areas, who's really left in that lurch?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what does qualified immunity have to do with having less police officers?
Because the economic incentive of qualified immunity means that your personal assets aren't gone after if something goes wrong. So, you're in business. Do you get involved in a project or a deal that leaves you massively exposed financially? You may, depending on your passion for that project, but then you also sit back and think, now, wait a minute, if something goes wrong, I'm going to be held massively liable. Maybe I need to do something else.
When something goes wrong, we're talking about people getting violently hurt or killed.
Yeah, clearly.
And I named people that you brushed over.
But it's when somebody clearly violates a constitutional right.
And when you violate a constitutional right, qualified immunity doesn't apply to you. And that's what I'm talking about. It does not. And Angela, don't do that. It does not.
I thought that was the definition. I thought that was the definition.
No, it does not.
I thought that was the definition.
No, it does not. If you carry yourself outside of the confines of your training and the protocols of that department, qualified immunity doesn't apply to you. It does not.
That's not true.
That is very true. That is very true.
That is patently
false. It's patently
that
true, and we need to make sure we have that accurate. We cannot make that statement because you have a lot of officers out here who do their job with honor and dignity and respect for the people that they serve.
Listen, qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that protects government officials from civil lawsuits when they perform their jobs unless they clearly violate a constitutional right.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And what is a violation of that right is when they're outside the norms of their training and the protocols of that department or that agency.
Boom. Right. In my opinion, I think it's a waste of time to be having this conversation about qualified immunity, right? I know there's a lot of woke revolutionaries out there and maybe people who are more libertarian in nature who want to get rid of it, right? But the only thing you're going to do is that you're going to destroy policing in America, okay? You're going to create more pockets of chaos and destruction, particularly in these liberal cities, really, to be quite honest with you, because you're going to have police that don't want to do the job, right? You're opening up police to civil liabilities for doing their jobs, right? And people got to understand that we do not live in the ideal world, okay? We don't. There's a lot of gray in this world that we live in, okay? And when police are doing their jobs, they have to make a lot of split-second decisions, right? So you have to allow some gray area for police to do their jobs without having to worry about potentially losing their financial livelihoods because they were doing their jobs, right? And that is the reality of policing in America, okay? There is no perfect solution. It's about trade-offs, okay? Do you want to live in a world where police are basically allowed to be sued for basically anything, okay? Because if you want to live in that world, yeah, you're not going to have any police brutality because you're not going to have any police, right? But if you want to live in a world where, hey, we allow some protections, again, if, police aren't, committing criminal activities, if they aren't clearly violating people's constitutional rights, hey, they got some protections to do their jobs because, again, they're dealing with violent criminals, then, yeah, you're going to get some police brutality, okay, every now and then. But once again, if you're not a criminal, okay, if you're not living a life of crime, there's a 99.999% chance you will never have to deal with it, even if you interact with a police officer. If you treat the police officer with respect, okay, if you don't try to talk back, if you comply, then you will walk out of that situation alive, right? There's a 99.99999% chance that will happen, okay? That is the reality, okay? Here's the thing. My biggest problem with policing is not even a police brutality issue, right? My biggest problem with policing is when you have police that don't actually do their jobs. When it comes time for them to serve and protect, like, for example, a mass shooter enters a school and the police officer runs away. Yeah, that's my issue with policing, right? That's my biggest issue with policing, okay? But my issue with policing is not how they treat criminals, okay? That is the last thing that I'm worried about, okay? So, you know, again, I find these conversations, again, to be a complete and total waste of time, because for a vast majority of society, this is not a problem at all. And I know somebody will pull up some example about some dude getting screwed over by cops that was innocent. It happens, right? That's the law of numbers, okay? I mean, that's just what it is, okay? But I'm willing to accept there will be situations like that, but let's hope those situations will be remedied, right? Rather than to go with the alternative, which is lawlessness, okay? As a conservative, I value law and order, right? That is the essence of conservatism, which is establishing law and order so that we can have a moral and just society, right? You need to have law and order in order to have a functioning society. That's just what it is.
Here's the main thing, because we can actually go past qualified immunity, because this is the place where you've refused to answer both on Donald Trump's accountability and on the law enforcement that you love so dearly.
Right.
What we know is that he's seeking full immunity, like the same immunity he now has because of the Supreme Court. Because of the corruption of the Supreme Court, we have now gone beyond civil presidential immunity to criminal presidential immunity. He would like to give that same immunity to law enforcement. True or false?
Well, let's expand that a couple
True
things.
or false?
You can't ask a true or false, Angela, because you gotta explain the details. No, see, this is the
I
problem.
don't want you to explain the details, because when you explain
Why you
the
don't
details,
want people to
we
hear
end up
the
down the road
details,
and not
Angela?
with
The
facts.
details are what the things that matter. You
What I
gotta
would
explain
like
the
for you to
details,
do
or
is
then you just
answer
talk. You're
true or
just
false,
talking.
and then explain.
If
Can
you
do
don't,
that?
if you don't explain the details, then you're just talking.
Yeah, you don't want to say that because you know that it's not true. So
That
let's
is
just
not
move
true.
on.
You want a true or false statement?
Congressman, I want to know if
I don't want to argue with you. I want to explain the facts.
Country.
Angela, I don't want to argue with you.
I would
wanna
like to
explain
know
the
if you've
facts.
ever experienced racism in this country, Congressman.
Yeah, actually.
Wow. I want you guys to understand. This woman just said that, well, the details don't matter, right? You're supposed to say true or false to a question that she's clearly framing in a way that is probably misleading, okay? And Byron Donalds wants to go into details about the framing of the question before he answers the question. And she said, no, details don't matter, right? Details don't matter. This is what liberals believe. Details don't matter.
Yeah, I have.
Okay. Do you believe America is a racist country?
No, I don't.
Okay, I believe that that's true, because you said in an op-ed on Fox News, as a black conservative, I, like Senator Scott, agree, and our two lives and the lives of many black men and women like us are living proof that America is indeed no longer a racist nation, and by far the best place to reach your fullest potential. And so here's my question. You did, however, vote to support the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, along with every member of the House except for 3 Republicans. So I appreciate your bipartisanship there. And what I do know as well, because America is in fact a racist country, was founded on such principles. Black men were lynched by the carceral state last week. I'm sure you've heard of Marcellus Williams by now, in Missouri, who was convicted by a nearly all-white jury, and Freddie Owens in South Carolina, who was executed despite his friend recanting testimony that Owens was not in fact there. This is the same state, by the way, that allowed for a firing squad as an execution option. Black people are about...
Okay, so 2 criminals that were executed, rightfully executed. Again, this is what they're doing. They're trying to say this is an example of lynching, right? When criminals get executed for murder, okay? And I've looked into these cases. These guys are definitely guilty, okay? Both of them are guilty, right? I mean, the guy in South Carolina, not only did he kill a woman, that's a single mother of 3 that was working like 3 jobs to feed her kids, shot her in the head, point blank, because she couldn't open up the cash register or something as he was robbing her. The dude got in jail and then killed somebody in jail, right? Killed a dude in jail that was there for a traffic violation. So this guy killed 2 people, but yet Angela Reed is sitting here talking about, well, they were lynched. They were lynched by the state. Again, this is what I'm talking about. This is the biggest problem with black folks. We worry about the wrong thing. We care more about the criminals and the lives of a criminal than we care about the lives of the innocent black people that lose their lives on a daily basis to the criminals, right? We put more effort behind trying to defend criminals than we do trying to defend innocent lives. This is the problem. And this is why black people are so ass backwards, okay? This is why we're at the bottom. This is why people are laughing, because we're worried about criminals being executed. That's what we're worried about. This is what we waste our time on. You're wasting your time talking to a sitting congressman crying about criminals being lynched, when first of all, they were not lynched. Lynching also is not a problem in the United States of America. That's not really happening anymore. Okay, so any conversations about the problem of lynching in America is just silly. It's a waste of time. But let's say that the criminals that were executed, let's say that they did actually commit the murders, which they did, okay, because they were found guilty in the court of law, and judge after judge, governors, federal courts, all reviewed these cases and said, nah, like, you definitely are guilty, okay? But let's just say they weren't guilty, right? Let's just say they weren't. If they did not live a life of crime, if they were not criminals, career criminals, they would not have put themselves in situations where they could be accused of murder in the first place. Therefore, they would not have been executed had they not lived a life of crime. It's really that simple. Don't live a life of crime. Do not become a career criminal. And your chances of being falsely accused of a crime, falsely being accused of murder, being wrongfully executed by the state is basically 0, okay? But again, that's not what these people want to focus on, right? They don't want to focus on actually holding criminals accountable. No, they want to try to make the criminals out to be the victims, right? And these are the conversations they want to sit down and have with sitting congressmen. This is why, again, we're not making any progress, because this is our so-called leadership right here, right here.
7.5 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murder in the United States than our white folks, and about 80% more likely to be innocent than others convicted of murder, according to a 2022 report by the National Registry of Exonerations. So please tell me how America is not a racist country.
First thing I would say is that our past is a dark one. It really is. We can't walk away from that. We had whole laws that were subjugating black people in the South of this nation for decades after the Civil War. We can't walk away from that one. I believe that in America, we have great people in this country, and we have some people, quite frankly, that even I can't stand. But they're the vast, vast, vast minority of people in our country. Most people just want to live in harmony and peace. That's what they really want. I think the important thing to acknowledge today is what's going to help black people going forward. And what's going to help black people moving forward is economic policy. It's actually wide open energy policy so we can be energy dominant. It's, yes, securing our southern border, because we have a situation right now where, yeah, there are more than 15 million illegal aliens in the country. Where do they reside? Mostly in sanctuary cities like New York. Where are they at? Sanctuary states like Illinois, like California. What's happening in those cities? Hospital systems are overrun. Why are they overrun? Because you have people in the country illegally who don't have resources, so they're going into the emergency room. What are they taking up? They're taking resources from poor people in our country, whether they're black, whether they're Hispanic, whether they're white. That's wrong. What about education? We have a situation where in too many inner cities, kids are not reading at grade level, or they don't have math skills at grade level. How does that help them excel and achieve? I don't want to discount what Angela is saying. I don't. I acknowledge the issue of our nation, but we always are trying to strive to be the more perfect union. So in 2024, what are the economic policies? What are the national security policies? What are the border security policies that are gonna make our country thrive? So whether you black, Hispanic, or white, you could thrive.
Why?
And so I think it's
So
important.
then, would you have to say that?
She won't stop interrupting. Sure.
No one seems to know this, but Amazon actually has a $50 million fund that they have to pay out every single.
Do you have people in your life who
applaud your success? Do you have people in your life who you trust? Do you have people in your life who, when you trip and fall, they laugh with you and then they pick you up and push you back out there? There are people that you know who will be those people if you choose to have them. I am blessed to have an incredible family and incredible friends. My best friend from kindergarten is still one of my best friends.
That's crazy.
Right? Stacey Johnson.
Yeah, that's dope. I love it.
We used to go to the clubs and her Father Seville. And so I think that's part of it, right?
I can't stand this lady.
I can't stand her. She's so annoying.
Because you do need the support to deal with it, and especially, I mean, people who are active on social media, it's hard out there. It's tough. And you have to find things. Like, I love to cook.
Y'all not tired yet? I mean, come on. Kamala Harris won't go on Fox News. She won't do a comprehensive interview where she has to answer follow-up questions, where she has to be challenged.
Exactly, but she goes around talking about her fucking stupid ass, retarded ass feelings. Like, people give a fuck. You're supposed to be the active president, you dumb. Like, what? Well, this is a silly ass, like, this is so fucking silly. You're supposed to be the active president. Right? But you're running for president. Like, this whole thing is like some kind of weird game or something. Somebody's messing with me, bro, because the politics cannot be this confusing, bro.
On the things that happen in this current administration, but she goes on all the smoke. So she'll go on a podcast hosted by two potheads, ex-NBA players who are very low IQ. I mean, there's nothing serious about this interview, right? And then you sit here and you watch this woman try so hard to be authentic, and it's so cringe. Sis, I've never seen somebody go so far out of their way to prove their blackness while still not proving it. You made this about your identity. We never did. You made it about your identity, so then when people start to dig, then you're gonna blame the people. You came up with the stuff that you came up with and shared it with the people. You were the first Indian everything until all of a sudden now you're a black woman.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about this super awkward interview that Kamala Harris did on the All the Smoke podcast, because Kamala Harris and Tim Walz can't seem to come up with any original ideas in regards to how they're going to campaign and reach people. So they're basically stealing the Trump strategy of doing the podcast circuit. And Kamala Harris is doing her rounds on the Black Urban podcast, and yeah, it was super awkward, okay? Mainly when Kamala Harris was confronted about the questions surrounding her race and whether or not she is actually black.
But what do you feel, or what do you think when you hear people kind of...
Exactly. It's always, how do you feel? What do you feel? Shut the fuck up. I'm tired of this crap, bro.
Questioning just the fabric of who you are.
Well, one, I don't listen to it.
She looks like a fucking white woman. She needs to shut up, bro. For real. Like, for real. She's not black. She's not Indian. Nothing like that. Look at her, bro. She's white, bro. Look at her eyes. She's white. She's not Indian. Nothing like that, bro. Come on.
I'm really clear about who I am, and if anybody else is not, they need to go through their own level of therapy. That's not my issue.
Right.
My mother was very clear. She was raising two black girls to be two proud black women, and that was never. It was never a question. You know, it's funny because over the years, journalists.
Look at her hands and her feet, bro. She's obviously white. I don't know why she keeps saying she's black. This is freaking annoying as fuck, bro. It's annoying and insulting because the fact that she thinks that she's black. It's like this Whoa Vicky vibe. I'm getting Whoa Vicky vibe. She's giving Vicky vibe.
Some, not most, will want to talk about it. And I say, okay, if you want to have this conversation, I'm prepared to have it, but sit down and get comfortable for a few hours. If you want to start talking about race in America, you want to talk about the 1/8 rule, you want to talk about what it means in terms of
You're so offended about the fact that people are not calling you black, and you want to prove that you're black so bad. Actually, go run the fucking United States. Go do something else. I don't know why this is such an issue and a topic about what color your skin is and what your ethnicity is. Aren't you supposed to be running the motherfucking state? Aren't you supposed to be running the whole fucking country? You care more about what people say about. Oh my gosh, bro, this is crazy.
Who you are perceived to be and the impact that can have on the rest of your life, regardless of who you actually are in terms of your God-given capacity and the rights that you have and should have. So, I don't know.
You live in America, you don't have no goddamn rights. Shut up. You're average just like everybody else. Stop bitching.
With that, I think that's other people trying to figure some stuff out, and they
got some issues.
They got to deal with it.
What if better was easier than you ever thought possible?
Yeah, so I found
she's so privileged that she doesn't even see her privilege, bro. This is crazy. It's crazy to me. You're that beyond privileged that you don't even. Privilege is invisible to the ones who have it. It's crazy. How many people can get on a talk show or like on a podcast and complain about, oh, I'm black, people are calling me white, I'm sorry, blah, 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 blah. Like, bro, what the fuck is going on? This is a circus clown, bro. Trump for president.
Found Kamala Harris's response to this question to be fascinating for multiple reasons, okay? Because apparently she has been confronted about this before by journalists in the past, okay? These journalists were probably doing their job, okay, and doing some investigative journalism, which according to the woke revolutionaries is a form of white supremacy, right? To ask questions about Kamala Harris's race. Is this woman really telling the truth about being black, okay? And her answer here, again, is interesting because she brings up the one-drop rule, right? Which is white supremacist ideology that the left is using to justify this idea that Kamala Harris is a black woman, right? They're saying, well, she probably has at least one drop of Negro blood, therefore she is black, okay? And I just found it to be very interesting how she brings that up, right? It seems to me that when a journalist wants to have a conversation with her about her family and whether or not she's black, she wants to guilt trip them about how race has been perceived in America. And that to me is a very interesting response for a woman that's supposed to be so blackity black, right? That is what they're trying to sell it. If Kamala Harris is as black as the pro-blacks claim that she is, right? If she's really soul sister number one, then she should not have to bring up the one drop rule in conversations about her race, because all she really has to do is to talk about her father's side of the family. Okay, these are my relatives. This is how I know them. This is when I met them. This is what I did growing up. Yada yada yada. That's all she has to do. All she has to do is to talk about her father's side of the family. He's an Afro-Jamaican. That's all she has to say. Okay, but she won't even say that. Okay, she is trying to shut down the conversation. That's what she does when people bring up her race, okay, which I thought to be fascinating because this is the only race conversation that the left doesn't want to have, because typically when there's a race conversation to be had, the left, they're the first people at the table, right? Let's talk about race. But when it comes to Kamala Harris, all of a sudden, no, they want to back away from the table and walk away. They don't want to talk about race anymore, right? I find that to be extremely fascinating. Also, on top of that, she mentioned how her mother raised her and her sister to be black women, right? Raised black girls. And I'm scratching my head because to me, it looks like Kamala's mother actually really raised them to be Indian women, right? I mean, if you look at all of the photos that we have of Kamala Harris growing up, it seems to me that she wasn't raised in a culturally black household or raised to be a black girl or whatever. She was raised in a culturally Indian household. She was raised to be an Indian woman, right? That to me is what it seems like, right? I'm just saying, I'm just going off what Kamala Harris is saying here, okay? But I don't really expect Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes to have a serious conversation with Kamala Harris about her blackness, right? Because my follow-up question would have been, well, how is it that an Indian woman can raise you to be black, right? Please explain how that works, okay? Hey, please.
No, for real, bro.
Are you looking for a new fence or gate for your home or property? Type in your address and drop the red pins to create.
Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard has a new crisis on her hands. She's being booted out of her home. Fox 32 has obtained copies.
Dude, that bitch is a thug, bro. She's a thug. Oh my gosh, bro. She's a thug, bro. Oh my goodness. Look at her. She's menacing.
Of an eviction notice filed in Cook County Court against Henyard and her boyfriend Kamal Woods.
Now the landlord says that
Here we go. That nigga shit. That nigga shit.
Henyard owes her more than $3,300 in late rent, and that Henyard has refused to allow that.
$3,300 her baby daddy didn't want to pay. Now she's upset.
Home to be inspected. Now Henyard and another person listed on the lease are scheduled for a court video call that's coming up on October 22nd. Henyard is already being investigated for allegedly mishandling village finances. Now we've reached out to Henyard for comment, but have not heard back.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We got to talk about ghetto super mayor Tiffany Henyard out of Dalton, Illinois. Okay, the reason why I call Dalton Wakanda, because I think that Dalton, what is happening in that town is a representation. It is a great example of what would happen if the woke revolutionaries could have it their way, right? If they could have this magical town with all black leadership, right? The white man is not a problem, okay? That's probably what the result would be, okay? You probably end up just like what's happening in Dalton, okay? Because ghetto super mayor Tiffany Henyard basically is trying to be an example of every stereotype in the book when it comes to black women. And that's what we have to talk about here today, okay? Because you know that she's corrupt, okay? She's under investigation by the feds. The city is facing a financial disaster, and because of that, her administration is falling apart, okay? She has lost a lot of key henchmen, like, for example, Keith Freeman, who was her right-hand man. He helped set up her fraudulent charity that is now under investigation, in which she was allegedly mixing public funds to help fund her private charity, right? She now is replacing her henchmen with more criminals, okay? Because apparently she has a history of hiring criminals to high places, right? High-paying government jobs. But this time, a judge smacked down Tiffany Henyard and her attempt to go around the city council and the rest of the leaders in the city in order to hire the people that she wants in positions of power that, quite honestly, they just shouldn't be in.
A dramatic meeting in Dalton leads to even more controversy, this time over a new hire.
Not only did Mayor Tiffany Henyard make the hire without consent from the board, we're learning tonight the newest employee has a storied past.
Dane Placco has been following this. He joins us now with this exclusive story. Dane.
Yeah, within hours of Mayor Tiffany Henyard appointing a new village administrator last night, allegations were surfacing about his background, including some startling allegations of inappropriate behavior.
My next appointment will be for village administrator.
Last night, Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard appointed a new top aide to a $100,000 a year job without board consent. 34-year-old Michael A. Smith, who's been active in South suburban politics for years.
The reason for Mike is he have a wealth of great information. He's a young person and ex-politician. He knows the laws like the back of his hand.
Perhaps that's because Smith has been in and out of trouble with the law for years. Public reporting shows Smith has been charged at least 8 times with crimes ranging from domestic battery to official misconduct. In 2012, Smith, then a young trustee in Dixmoor, resigned after pleading guilty to theft when he allegedly stole gasoline by posing as a police officer. Then in
That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Wow. Wow.
2018, Smith was working as an assistant dean at Thornton Fractional High School when he was fired for sexual harassment of a female.
See, that's already.
That's a goner. Nope. Sexual harassment of a female student. Groom a student with a. Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Student, grooming a student with lascivious intent and inappropriate aggressive behavior towards a male student.
Several days later.
Starters, we paid a visit to Village Hall around 3 this afternoon, and I'm told Mayor Tiffany Henyard was not at work today. As for that court order, this is a major win for those trustees who have been up against Henyard for some time. A judge yesterday siding with 4 trustees by ruling that Henyard did not have the legal authority to make 3 recent appointments: a new police chief, village attorney, and village administrator, all of them given jobs by Henyard earlier this month. Trustees argue that she did so without their consent or approval, and that she did not have a quorum to start the meeting in the first place. The trustees' motion for a temporary restraining order also alleges bullying, retaliation, and violating the Open Meetings Act. Yesterday, Cook County Judge Thaddeus Wilson agreed.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? Ghetto Super Mayor Tiffany Henyard is out here trying to hire all the criminals in the hood to run the city, okay? Because that seems to be par for the course when it comes to her operation. Like, for example, she faced criticism before in the past for hiring a convicted gang rapist, okay? This guy was convicted of gang raping young girls, okay? And she hired this guy to be a code enforcer for the city, right? Which out here throwing parties at this skating rink that nobody else uses, by the way. And then she's going on the internet and bragging about using her own personal funds, right, in order to throw